Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. Absence of Malice is a 1981 American drama film that's directed by Sidney Pollack, and it stars Paul Newman and Sally Field. It's the story about the life of a Miami liquor distributor named Michael Gallagher, played by Paul Newman, and how his life completely unravels after a newspaper story falsely implicates him in a murder. Is written by reporter Megan Carter. That's played by Sally Field. She bases her story on something she has read from a file that was left intentionally on the desktop of a federal prosecutor named Elliot Rosen. As it turns out, Rosen is doing a bogus investigation and has leaked it with the purpose of squeezing Gallagher for information. The film also stars Melinda Dillon, Luther Adler, Barry Primus, Joseph Summer, and Wilford Brimley. The title of the movie is one of the defenses against libel defamation, and it's used in journalism classes to illustrate the conflict between disclosing damaging personal information and the public's right to know. The movie was written by Kurt Luedtke, a former newspaper editor. Paul Newman said the film was a direct attack on the New York Post, which had earlier published a caption of a photo of Newman that he said was completely inaccurate. Because of the dispute, the Post banned Newman from its pages, even removing his name from movies in the TV listings. The film's storyline was inspired by the media law legal case of Times versus Sullivan. The writer summarizes the case by saying that American libel laws, due to this case precedent, indicate that truth is not always necessary to journalism in situations that involve public figures. As such, a newspaper can effectively make a bad mistake and hurt a public figure, and the latter cannot always collect damages for doing this. In the matter of the law, the truth of the story can be completely irrelevant. If there is no knowledge that a story is false, then the media are absent of malice. If the media have been reasonable and prudent in producing a story, then they are not negligent. As such, the media can say whatever they like about someone, and the affected party is basically powerless to stop them. Now, Paul Newman and director Sidney Pollack were both gourmet chefs, and they had a continual running culinary competition throughout the filming of the movie, with Sally Field being the judge. She was a good sport at first, and she actually enjoyed doing it, but she quickly grew tired of eating gourmet meals night after night, and she began begging off her judging duties in favor of just some old-fashioned greasy hamburgers and omelets from the local diners. One of the movie's posters and press ads featured a very long descriptive preamble that read, "Suppose you picked up this morning's newspaper and your life was on the front page headline. Everything they said seemed accurate, but none of it was true. The DA, the feds, and the police set her up to write this story that explodes his world. Now he's going to write the book on getting even." At the time that the film was made and launched in theaters, Paul Newman made a statement that he said that about 90% of what people read about him in newspapers is completely untrue, that it's almost all complete garbage. It's all done to create a sensational story every week, so the readers will bury their noses in the pages of the newspaper. When nothing is actually happening in a celebrity's life, what do? In that case, they make it up. In the film, you hear Megan ask if the gay man who saved President Ford killed himself. As of the making of the film, the answer was no. Oliver Semple, this man in question, sued a number of media outlets for reporting his sexuality, calling it an invasion of his privacy. His claims were discussed by the California Appeals Court, which ruled that he was a newsworthy figure and that his sexuality was also newsworthy too. After all of the publicity that was given the man, Semple became a very heavy chronic drinker and was eventually found dead in his San Francisco apartment in February of 1989. He had been dead for at least 10 days before his body was discovered. This picture has often been considered as being the thematic opposite or reverse of All the President's Men from 1976, and is commonly called in show business trade papers the flip side of All the President's Men. At one point in the film, when Sally Field and Paul Newman are having dinner, Field tells a story about her father laying down on the lawn, waiting for her to return from a date one night. This is in fact a true story from Sally Field's own real life. Her stepfather, Jock Mahoney, waited for her to come home by laying on their front lawn. Except for the movie's culminating 15-minute sequence, the picture was shot entirely in functioning restaurants and bars, banks, and government buildings of Miami, Florida. Some of them were dressed for the occasion. A huge warehouse on Biscayne Bay convincingly became Gallagher Imports, while in like manner, the back of the flagship National Bank on Brickell Avenue became the front of the fictitious Miami Standard newspaper. After preview screenings were done for the film, the ending was slightly altered so that the relationship between the Michael Gallagher character, played by Paul Newman, and the Megan character, played by Sally Fields, was left open-ended and not closed-ended. This is an old Hollywood movie trick where if love interests do not end up together in the film so as to have a happy ending, there's a need to suggest that the pair might see each other or get together again romantically after the pictures end. This was the clear intention of the producer and director, Sidney Pollack. The same ending suggestion happens at the end of Pollack's Tootsie from 1982, where Jessica Lange and Dustin Hoffman's character have a falling out. They walk down the boulevard at the film's end, with Hoffman putting his arm around Lange at the end of the closing shot. The lead male role of Michael Gallagher was originally conceived as an Italian man, and the original intention was to approach Al Pacino. When Paul Newman was cast in the role, the ethnicity of the character had to be changed, with the character's name being changed also. At the end of the film, Paul Newman's character is about to sail away from Miami. Megan Carter, played by Sally Field, asks him where he plans to go. He makes a comment that the whole country seems to be going south and west, so he thinks he'll go north and east. This is a really somewhat sly reference to Paul Newman's next film, The Verdict, in which he plays a Boston lawyer. Now, at one point, Michael Gallagher in the film attacks Megan Carter and really roughs her up quite a bit. This resulted in Sally Field receiving some minor injuries when this filming was done. If you watch this closely, you can see her get hammered around by Newman, and you can tell this is not a stunt double. Everything was live and real. Sally Field declared that her neck pain was beyond sore. She likened it to being like having whiplash, but she kept on with the filming and never complained at all because she didn't want Paul Newman to know that he had hurt her. She continued working on the movie. The next time you watch this film, take a look at this scene specifically and just see how violent it is. Take a look back at this very well done film. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.